Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, the state of Nevada has 2 universities, 5 colleges, an environmental research institute, and more than 100,000 students. Now, there's a new leader for that whole system of higher education. New Chancellor Tom Riley is here now with us. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you've been on the job for a couple of months now. How's it going so far?
Good. I mean, it's obviously a learning curve, but I've been in Nevada for a long period of time, so that was helpful. But spending a lot of time meeting with all the presidents, there's 8 presidents, meeting with the 13 regents, and meeting a lot with community individuals and faculty and students.
Now you're taking over at a pretty interesting time as Nevada as a state is growing, our economy is growing, obviously the education system is growing with it, and it's got this big responsibility to supply the types of graduates and trained workforce that the new Nevada needs. So coming at it from an outside perspective, how well would you say the system is doing in that goal now?
Well, it's made tremendous strides. I mean, the workforce, the changes in the workforce we'll see in the next 5 or 10 years will surpass anything we've seen. The job creation and job elimination will be at a pace that we haven't seen in a while. So the Nevada system of higher education really serves as a key factor in preparing many of the workforce issues. They've been aggressively, many of the colleges have been aggressively trying to address many of those workforce needs through development of new certificates, particularly at the community college level. They tend to be a lot more nimble and can turn around certificates in a more expeditious manner. The universities are also focusing on more forward thinking, looking at and assisting industries in looking at what are the skills that you'll need in 5 or 10 years. So one is responding to the immediate need, and 2 is also to help industry and help the state think more forward on what type of skill set they need.
Right.
But that is, will be and has been and will be one of our main focus areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a moving target too. It's hard to predict the future, excuse me. We hear from a lot of employers, especially new businesses, that come into the area and they say, well, we have all these great jobs that are opening up, but they involve kind of a high level of technical ability. And there aren't enough people in Nevada who have those skills a lot of the time. So they're hiring from outside. And I know that this has got to be a top priority, at least to keep Nevada jobs going to Nevadans.
No question about it.
Is that, I mean, I know you have a list of priorities. How high up is that?
It is. So we actually just recently brought all the presidents together, brought all the regions together, and we had a 2-day workshop to look at identifying what the priorities will be in the next few years. Some of the criteria in developing those goals were twofold. One is that those goals that are most likely move the needle in higher education, and 2, that they are explained in a manner and stated in a manner without jargon that's easily understood, so the community and legislators can say, oh, I get it. So we did adopt 5 goals, and I can go over those real quickly if that's okay.
By all means.
The first one is on the issue of participation in higher education and access. About 24% of Nevadans between the ages of 18 and 24 go on to higher education. And I have a broad definition of higher education. That's everywhere from a doctoral degree to a certificate, 2-year degree, 4-year degree to graduate degree. We rank 49th out of the 50 states in the percent of Nevadans going on to higher education. Access to higher education is the #1 adaptive function factor that leads towards success. And we've basically have relegated that just to 24% of our population. We have to do a better job in getting more individuals into Nevada. Your comment earlier about the issue of workforce. We have 75% of our population that aren't engaging in higher education, either not coming or not college ready or career ready when they're coming out of high school, or not coming back in order to get those skills. So access has to be a key function, and we really have to explore what are those barriers, and they're not just financial, that are keeping individuals from going on to higher education. So that's going to be a major focus. That's only half the success. So once we get them into higher education, obviously the critical area of our higher education is student success. We can measure that a lot of ways, but most simply that is degree and certificate completion. So once they enter, do they get their certificate and do they get their degrees? Again, when we compare ourselves nationally, we lag behind many of our institutions, both at a 2-year and a 4-year level. The third area is that when we break this down, we look at the achievement gap between underrepresented populations, particularly when we look at the Latino population and the African American population compared to our white students. Again, those numbers don't look good. We need to focus on those, we need to identify those, and we need to see what type of resources and what evidence is working elsewhere in order to close that achievement gap between those populations. The fourth goal that we identified was preparing on the workforce issue, is that we will be very aggressive in ensuring that we're meeting the needs of workforce issues. We can determine what industries are coming on and what those projections are. We can actually measure that to the type of degrees and certificates that we produce at the 2- and 4-year level. And then we can also measure how many of them stay in Nevada. So it's a clear metric that we have our eye on, and as I said before, many of our community colleges and our universities are actively engaged in that. The last goal is focused on the issue of research, and that's going to look at 2 ways. One is that for our 2 research universities, University of Nevada, Reno and University of Nevada, Las Vegas, are working aggressively to become a R1 in the Carnegie definition of a research institution. We are the largest populated state in the United States without an R1 research institution. So we can quantitatively measure that. But for all the other institutions, we do research to solve problems. That's why we're doing it. It's not just a theoretical exercise that we go through with our students and faculty. We do it to solve problems. So what we're doing is to have our universities and our community colleges define to the public and elsewhere is what type of those problems that we're actually solving. So to do that, I mean, one of the observations I've had when I've come on just recently is to look at what items are we discussing at the Board of Regents meeting. And I'm not convinced that we are discussing those most important issues that will move the needle. We need to be focused on these 5 areas. That needs to dominate our discussion. That needs to dominate our agenda. And what I've asked each of the institutions to do is we're going to start each meeting with these metrics. We're going to keep them in front of us and look at are we moving the needle and are we making progress. But I've asked each of the institutions to identify a peer institution and an aspirational institution. For example, the community of Southern Nevada comparing themselves to UNR probably is not the best measure of success. They need to compare themselves to other community colleges in large urban areas with an ethnically diverse population.
Okay, a big list of priorities, definitely, and we have not a ton of time left, but I do want to touch on a few key issues.
Sure.
And you mentioned that you're taking a broad definition of higher education. I think that's great. I'm wondering if we need to redefine, what people need in terms of achieving success and gear it more toward trades, because we're seeing that the most in-demand jobs are things that don't require a 4-year degree. Sure. In a lot of cases. So do you see the system moving more toward trade schools?
I think it's both. I mean, the demand for 4-year institutions and those that have that skill set, electrical engineering and those type of skill set, there still is a tremendous need in Nevada and elsewhere in the United States. But to your point is that yes, we need to be focusing on those trades and those certificates. I mean, one measure I would like to look at is, are we producing new certificates in our response to industries? So we're identifying what is the skill set, and it's not only producing those certificates and trades, but also making having the ability to get those certificates easier, either through online, through weekend classes, through courses that you can do at your own pace. I mean, we have to be a lot more creative, because many of those individuals who are coming back into the workforce and need those skill sets have families. They're very busy, right, and they don't fit into that traditional, daytime schooling that many of the individuals go to our 4-year institutions.
Now, just a couple minutes left, but I do want to ask this. We've seen steady tuition increases for the system for the last several years. Do you see that continuing?
Well, we actually have had a committee just to look at that in the very short time I am there too. And what the committee is actually recommending, and this will be going to all the campuses, is that we adhere to the cost of living increase. It's an index that looks at the cost of living increases for higher education. That's about 1.8% per year. So the committee, made up of faculty and students and administrators, are recommending that we do not exceed the cost of living increase. So we won't be seeing in the last couple of years the 4 and 4.5% increase. It will just be at the cost of living.
Good to hear. Okay, well, we have 1 minute left. So what message would you like current students, future students to take away from, what their system is going to look like?
Sure. Well, I think for those that haven't engaged in higher education, I mean, it's coming in the door and then looking at the possibilities of what, they may start with a certificate and then they realize, well, maybe I can go on that 2-year degree. Well, maybe I actually can go on and transfer to the university and do a 4-year degree. And that experience that you have in higher education builds upon itself. And at the end, it's going to pay off.
Okay, so worth looking into it. All right, Tom, thank you so much for your time. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information on all of this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.